On today's episode of the Lead More podcast, we sit down with Sharath Kuruganty. Sharath is an incredible founder. He's built 2 different SaaS companies, sold his first one, is now building guestlab.ai, a cool tool that we probably have to use for this podcast. But both of these he's done as side hustles while working big jobs inside tech companies. And what I admire most about Sharath is I followed him on Twitter for a long time. He's incredible at building in public. Now, if you've ever heard of this idea, building in public essentially means one of my favorite phrases, document. Don't create. You don't have to build this fancy narrative. Document the journey of building your company. Document the journey of training for a marathon. Document the journey of taking over the new role as CEO. This is the lesson I think I want leaders to learn from this episode is the power of using media today, the internet, social media, content to tell the story, to document, don't create, to build a community, to build a following, to get that buy-in by building authentically and transparently. So Sharath does just that, right? He goes on Twitter and he talks about building the company. He shares the numbers. He shows the good. He shows the bad. And in today's episode, what I love about Sharath recently, he's gone through a pretty big curveball in life, a lot of change coming right now. I'm going to let him talk about that. So I'm going to tease that out for you. A lot of change. And he just recently went through something last month that many of us unfortunately have to do, a big change in life. And he's going to talk about how he adapted to that change, how he dealt with unfortunate circumstances, and how he's come out on the other end. So he shares his framework for dealing with that. It's the AAA framework, which means acknowledge that the incident happened, accept it, right? Flip the switch, accept that it's in the past, move on, and then act. What are you going to do next because of that? So you're going to hear that story from Sharath because he's built in public and built this community and done so very transparently and openly. After this incident happened, immediately his community flocked to him to offer support, to offer a job. He's been offered to be a co-founder. And so he talks about that as well, as how by being so transparent and authentic, all these new doors have opened up for him. So that's today's episode of the Lead More podcast. You're going to like our conversation with Sharath. Here it is. All right. Welcome to another episode of the Lead More podcast. I'm here with my friend Sharath. How are you doing today, Sharath?
Good. I'm doing good. Slightly weird sitting on the other side as a guest. So
you're usually the host.
Yeah,
you've had a lot of change in your life. Sorry to interrupt. You've had a lot of change. I know you just moved, right?
Yeah, we moved. We bought a new house last year. We closed it last month. Moved last week. So it was quite a journey there. Recently I got laid off. That's a change that was unexpected.
Your family's growing.
Family's growing. Yeah, we're expecting boy number 2 on the way. Baby K, another baby K, on the way. I have one toddler son. He's ridiculously cute and smart and excited to welcome his baby brother. So a lot of changes happening around. All things considered, life's good. Life's grateful.
Yeah, and I love that perspective because we were messaging back and forth. You mentioned there in your laundry list of change, got laid off. And I think one of the things we were talking about was sort of curveballs in life and resiliency. I think I asked you what your superpower was, and you said that you're incredibly resilient. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I don't know that that's kind of like a thing, but I kind of discovered it as I've kind of, grown older. As if people are watching, I have a lot of gray hair on my cheek and my head. So as I grow older, I kind of I stuck to it, and I think that's one thing. One of the many things I got stuck to it is, I don't just give up. I might let go. That's different. Many people get confused about letting go versus giving up, right? Letting go is kind of intentional, that you can choose to do. Giving up it's not a choice per se. It's like, it feels like someone is forcing on you and you're kind of accepting it, right? It can be your mindset, the chatterbox in your mind and whatnot. external situations. So anyway, yeah, being resilient, I think that's something that, um, you just I just kind of uh, I just felt so many times in life. It's not the first time, right? It's
Yeah.
not something that's new to me. So I've developed this thick skin. So those are the things I kind of like discovered. Oh, you know what? Yeah, I developed this new skill about moving on quickly.
Hmm.
I've preached Gary Vee on this particular topic. He's someone who says many times, and I've heard him many times as well. Your ability to move on from an obstacle or um, an adversity is the superpower. That's
Hmm.
something you should work on, right?
Yeah.
Um as a founder, as a content creator, as an entrepreneur, like many of us, we just face these rejections, we just face these failures on a regular basis. It's very consistent, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
One thing is for sure is success is not consistent, but the other side of the coin, which is failure, rejections, those are definitely consistent, because uh, if you handle that, success become consistent.
Well, that was what I was going to ask you next. Was do you think that was a learned behavior from necessity? Was it maybe modeled by, say, parents or a mentor or leader? Or where do you think you developed that skill, that resiliency?
I think it's uh, from the situations. You know, a lot many times I'm like, okay, it happened again, and you have a choice, right? Like, what will you do? I ask this question to myself, and 99.9% the answer is get up, figure
Hmm.
out, do things, play the long game, remind yourself that it will happen. Something is there at the end of the tunnel. I think for me, I think you're big on frameworks. Like, I think one thing I really practice here is, I call it AAA system or framework,
Okay.
which is, you acknowledge your reality, whatever it is, right? And you accept it, and you act on it. So that's kind of like a framework uh, that I come with. Basically, you acknowledge, you show your gratitude towards, like, okay, toward people around you. Think about, always half glass full. You're
Yep.
kind of like your existence, your breathing. So there is an acknowledgement. There's a sense of gratitude there. You accept you accept that you can control the thing that you're facing, right? This way, you're giving yourself an opportunity to be present. You liberate yourself from dwelling, complaining, and all that. And the most important thing, in my opinion, is acting.
Hmm.
So you basically take action towards it. You just can't sit, acknowledge and accept doesn't move the needle. You should act towards it. Now your role is to, like, hey, what should I do? It doesn't matter how big or small the task is about, like, you just have to do it with non-judgment. Like,
Hmm.
those non-judgmental actions, whether you take really tiny micro actions, they're going to compound, right? So I kind of developed this over the time. The first two phases are the toughest to, because it's a mental game.
Yeah. Acknowledge, accept. Yeah.
The third phase, the third thing is also the toughest, but it's toughest when you want to take a big action or a bigger chase, like a bigger thing. But it becomes ridiculously easy when you do like small tiny micro actions. So
Yeah. So let's play this one out in your case of I think it was about maybe 6 weeks ago when you got an email or a phone call that you got
hmm
laid off from your tech job.
hmm
Meanwhile, you're getting ready to move. You have a baby on the way. You're starting. You also had a startup you're building, still building on the side.
right.
Um, Walk me through that scenario. You told me you were maybe nervous or freaked out for about 15 minutes, which most
Right.
people, uh, all people, leaders especially, are going to fall down, like you said, and face a moment like that.
Mm.
Apply your AAA, AAA framework to that scenario. Like, walk me
Yeah.
through how you.
So yeah, the first thing, it was, I think, a Monday. I just took my coffee. Just this was in the old house. I just came here and I got this message that, hey, from my, you know, my boss, like the CEO of the company I'm working for, the startup. uh, he and I, we were like gelled very well. It was like a good relationship. I still have a good relationship with him. He's an amazing guy. Uh, and it's weird. You know it when you receive a message like
Just the
that.
type,
It's
the
out of the box.
wording, the who was on the calendar
Yeah,
invite. Yeah.
yeah. It's like, hey, you have to talk about something. Can you hop on a call in the next 5 minutes? I'm like, okay. Uh,
Yeah.
so that's where I started already acknowledging.
Yep.
You know, it's like, okay, it's already coming. So I think Justin Khan talks about this in his pretty famous blog, Feeling Good. People all should refer to that. I
Yeah.
refer
We'll
to
put it in
that
the show
quite
notes.
often. Yeah, it's ridiculously good. He talks about negative visualization, which is also important. I would say equally important as manifestation, right? Uh, what it tells you about is like, imagine something terrible happens to you all the time. It's not necessarily, it shouldn't disturb you or your day or your flow or whatever it is, but it should be in your mind because you're prepared. You're
Hmm.
basically like ready. So I started like kind of, when I signed the house, I already imagined that I'm going to lose a job.
Hmm.
Or when something's big or life changing happening, I imagine that basically the fear of the other thing that stops the big thing has already
Hmm.
happened.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of already prepared, right? It's not something new.
Well, I often
It's
like to
already there.
say, you're a longtime entrepreneur, and I think I feel a little bittersweet about this. In one way, it's like we developed this body armor because we've had so many highs, we've had so many
Mm,
lows, and you can't really uh, react too extreme either way. Like you can't get too excited about the highs because you're going to get slapped in the face tomorrow, but you can't
mhm.
get too down on the lows, and so you develop this body armor, which kind of makes you actually a little bit numb to some of the experiences in life because you're very much like you're already ready for your
Yeah.
fortunes to turn. If it's bad, it'll be good. If it's good, something's coming, but you almost have to have it.
Yeah, you have it. You have to, I think that's essential. That's a thick skin I'm talking about. Every
Hmm.
founder should have a thick skin. I think,
Hmm.
forget about, I mean, of course, all the important uh, skills are like business skills, how to make money, how to like sell, how to build a product for people, that people want, how to talk to customers. It's all, I feel like, pretty important.
Yeah.
I think on an intangible level, developing a thick skin is a non-negotiable skill that you should develop.
Okay. So
So
you have already acknowledged this even before like when you bought the house, but you get this message say, let's chat in 5 minutes. You're already mentally getting there.
yeah, I'm mentally there. I'm kind of like, okay, it's already happening. Let's just take a deep breath and just like, observe, like, I'm so I kind of went into, I do this gratitude journaling every morning. I use
Hmm.
this app called 5 minute, uh 5 minute journal, something like that.
Yeah.
Every day. Shout out to Tim Ferriss for that. He suggested that, and I've been using this for like 3-4 years.
Yeah.
I do that, like what I'm grateful for already. So I already wrote that, my journal, before even the call. Like that's the first thing I do when I wake
Love it.
up, and it's already there, right? Like you kind of like, so I kind of compare this situation to like something. That's where Gary Vee comes in. Like he also says about what Justin Khan says, the negative visualization. Like, if your loved ones are alive,
You're
you
winning.
should be very happy. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, that's the most amount of pain that you will get, right? Losing a loved one, or you having a life changing, like irreversible disease or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Health. Yep. Yep.
something that's not controlled by you, uh, and it's still there or exists. So for me, it's like I kind of developed this routine in my head, like, okay, something terrible is going to happen. Okay, now I have to compare with this to another thing that actually gives me a lot of pain. So
Hmm.
then I was like, okay, I hopped on a call. I already acknowledged, then I accepted. Okay, in that 5 minutes call, due to whatever reason, we're parting ways, and that's what he said straight up, and I was like, I appreciated his take. No, no bullshitting or you
Yeah.
know
Didn't
sugarcoating.
sugarcoat it.
Like,
Yep.
yeah, sugarcoated. He was like, this is a situation. The company was, they haven't closed another round, another funding round, so for budget issues,
Making
we're
some
like,
changes.
okay.
Yeah. All startups trying to get profitable right now. Yeah. All those things. Yep.
Yeah, so I know that founder, and he's a hustler, and he didn't mean the other way, right? So I was like, okay, nothing personal here. You have to do what's best for you, which is, in this case, letting me go. I'm like, okay. And on the way down, my wife was feeding my son. We were about to, we were preparing him for his daycare, and I just told her, like, hey, it happened. And she was like, okay, let's get him to the school first. This is the first priority, not that
Yep.
it's already happened, you can control. So we were already like kind of moving on,
You'd
because
accept it. Yeah.
you already accepted. So I accepted the situation, I dropped him, came back, and I was like, okay, for 15-10 minutes I was like, it already happened. I can't change his mind. I can't put money in the company's bank. So
Yeah. Not
again,
going to pay
things I
yourself. Yeah.
can't control, or I can't bring like $100 million or whatever it is that. So on the other side, I was like, okay, now it actually gives me so the other side is, I think in the acceptance phase, you have to also think that opportunity exists
Yes.
when you accept.
Even if you don't know what it
So
is, you at least
yeah,
accept that it's out there.
there is a there is uh, there is a chance that something better will come, or you will learn something better, or you become better. So I think the half glass full concept really works well there. That, I don't know, the universe giving you signal, whatever it is, that God, whatever that you believe,
Hmm.
it's kind of sending your way that, okay, you have to be ready for the next thing.
It's almost like a
The
light
immediate,
switch. It's like once you've accepted, and it's now history. It's in the past.
right,
You can't move on until you sort of accept. But once you do, it's like now the grass is green, right? And there's lots of
right.
opportunity in front of you.
I think that comes the third thing. Like, I come kind of like, took a step back, and uh, they were like, hey, you don't have to do anything now. It's all done and gone. You just take a break. We're here to help and all that. So I was like, okay. For all of a sudden, I kind of felt relieved. You know, I was like, okay, this relief is good, right? Like, when you feel that relief, that's a good sign. At least in my case, I felt relieved, and I'm like, okay, what should I do next? So I think in an hour or two, if I'm not wrong, I just tweeted saying that. Let me check. I think I did it in an hour or two, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, and as you
Uh,
check, I want to say that this is part of why I wanted you to come on the show because I've met Sharath through the internet's online friends, and Sharath is an incredible. The phrase is, if any leaders haven't heard this, build in public. The idea of
mm,
like being very open and transparent, documenting not only the creation of your company, but the creation of your content, your show, your like share metrics, you share numbers, like very transparent. And I just watched on the sidelines as this happened 6 weeks ago from, oh my gosh, I got laid off or whatever your tweet was, to just opportunities and connections and Zoom calls and DMs
right.
and like, so I wanted you to talk about that too, because you clearly, the third step, you
Yeah.
acted quickly. And it seemed like it was almost like your network acted for you and
That's
really
the community bit, right? That's a part of community, part of network. So I think I just checked. It's, I think, 11 a.m. So I think this happened around 8:39.
okay.
I
Two and a half
the
hours.
drive to daycare is like 20 minutes back and forth. Close to 40 minutes. So like 10 o'clock, I'm at peace. I'm like, okay, it's already happened. Acknowledged, accepted. Now what can I do next? So I think 10 to 11, I just felt I should really be transparent about it. Like, I'm going through something, I just have to express it.
Mm-hmm.
That was never like my intention was never to uh, use that as, or utilize that as an opportunity to kind of leverage that. I just want to really express what I'm going through. Like,
Yeah.
even in the tweet, if
Which
you
is hard
see the,
because we internalize that as failure. I messed up. Like I did something. Like I'm not good enough. Right. Like that's what the self talk will say. But what you experienced is something that so many people go through.
yeah, and I was like, okay, I have to put some things together, and I just spent like 30 minutes, on my computer, and like, okay, this is what I came with. And if you see the thread, it's all not really well written. It's just written,
Just
but
written.
it's very well expressed. There is authenticity, there is transparency there, and I just came up with 4 bullet points what I did in the past 1.5 years for that company, and what I'm going to offer to the next job.
Hmm.
And for a second, I was like, okay, let's process this through. uh, so this other thing that happened is kind of super weird, is that uh, I saw this more of like an opportunity, like, okay, let me actually kind of go through this, right? And maybe this is an opportunity for me to go all in on myself.
Hmm.
Is that, probably that's a sign. So long story long story short, uh, yeah, so I have to correct one fact. So it happened on Monday, I posted on Tuesday.
Okay.
So I was actually going through this. Is there a chance that I can go all in?
Yeah.
Because of I'm on a work visa, I can't, work for myself or do all that. So
Yeah. There's other logistics you got to consider for sure.
yeah, so I just spoke to some lawyers. I consulted few people who are in my shoes before, and how they navigated and all that. So I took like a sweet, 24-hour window. But
Yep.
yeah, the next day I spoke to my wife, like how she's feeling about it and all that. Then I decided to put this out, and that's the thing I kind of did in that act phase. And I'm like overwhelmed of opportunities that flooded in, because so at this point I was kind of like, man, this is ridiculous. The network, the community, they were like, okay, we want to work, we want to like collaborate, or like some people, they
Job
chimed in
offers,
and
I'm
say,
sure.
yeah, they were like, okay, let's do this. I'm building this, would you be in the co-founder role, all that.
Wow.
So uh, these are all, I feel, amazing, incredible signs. But I want to just mention that it's not, so I haven't closed on any of these companies because of different reasons. I'm moving and all that. It's not easy, is what I want to tell. It's a process. Even I'm telling this to myself
Yeah.
first
Yep.
before I'm talking to you, right? I tell this to myself, low. So I woke up many days. So it's February 4th, so December 4th that happened. Today we are in January 23rd. That means
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
it's
Six
about
weeks.
like 2 months. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like
7 weeks.
60. So that means it's hard, right? It's, it takes its own time. That's something that people should realize. All the frameworks, they're all good, you should live it. I'm living through it right now as we speak. So I'm also kind of realizing that it's not going to happen like how it happened before. So every time it's
Yes.
different, every fall is different, is what I want to tell.
That's
Every
good.
fall is different, every time you rise is also different. So don't compare yourself. This is something I learned in the last few weeks. My monkey mind went back to all the falls, and like, it's kind of finding a pattern. Okay, maybe this happened because of this, maybe this will happen because of this now,
Hmm.
because this happened in the past. Hell no. So every
That's
fall is
great.
different. Every rise is different. So I don't know how will I rise, but I'm sure I'm gonna rise. But the point is, don't find patterns. My wife told me this. I think you just have to live through it. You'll feel anxious, you'll feel like you'll go through the journey. That's why it's kind of rewarding in the end,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So
It's an adventure. Yeah.
if someone gives it to you, there is no thrill, right? So anyway, any long story, I think
Well, I
I've
think
done
the other
things
thing
in.
with that piece, sorry, is just like I'm sure you also have a lot of people in your life that are projecting on you sort of what's going to happen based on their experience too, right? Like, oh,
Yeah,
I got laid off and here's what's going to happen. Here's what you should do next. And it's very much like individualized advice. It's helpful, but like you have to take it with a grain of salt, right? Because
Right.
you are different. Your experience will be different, but we all come from that kind of our own bias.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. I think that's the thing I'm learning as of now, is that there is no pattern. Uh, you can get inspired, like, okay, the pattern you should find is in the inputs, not the outputs.
Yeah.
So I'm doing the same thing what I did in the last, like, I got laid off in 2022 for a similar reason. I did the same thing, like put it out, put a bad signal, be authentic, be transparent, sell what you can about yourself, what you can offer, create value, be consistent, do all that, like,
Yeah.
it's all the playbook. But do things in public, keep people in loop, like,
Yeah.
uh,
You just kind of answered my question there, but I'm curious, Sharath, like as a community builder, as a content creator, a build in public believer, what do you think was the recipe in that moment or that thread, or like why did your community rise so strongly for you, or like that all these opportunities, these connections? I mean, from everything from job offers to co-founders. If someone else is listening to this and they might think, gosh, I don't know if my network would do that, or is that strong, or like what is it, because you led with emotion? Is it like, just what do you think as you unpack that, why people were so passionate about helping?
two things, right? One is, um, I was very authentic. I don't know if you read the thread, I was just writing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't draft it. I didn't like rewrite it. It's not well written as well. I think I'm sure that there are so many grammatic mistakes as well. I just like wrote it. So just be authentic. Just speak your mind. Like, you don't have to. That's the key. A lot many people right now I see are scheming when they're building in public
Mm.
instead of expressing. There is a big difference.
Sort of putting
You
a
know,
lens on what everything looks like.
yeah, there is a filter, there is a lens. They're like, okay, what about X person did this in this way? What about this? How would I redraft it? Iterations are different. Iteration is, the definition is, at least in my opinion, is you do it, you become better 1% from the last time.
Love that.
The drafting scheming is you're not doing, you're just kind of, you know that's where people think about, like, that's me becoming better. No, that's you're kind of tinkering, you're dwelling in private. What you need to actually do is do things in public, so that you will learn, so you will face that fear, and you will become better. So
Yep.
I've done these things many times. I've launched products in public, I've launched my show in public. you know it's all like iteration. So it become grateful that, fortunate to become like more of like a second nature now.
Yeah.
But
Build the muscle.
what yeah, what really worked well is you express authentically, transparently, and number two is you should not ask. You should ask very less
Mm.
and give more.
Give.
So once you do that, I think people knows about it, right? Like, nobody's faking it, right? um, that's what I did. Like, I have very limited asks. In my entire 2023, there is no asks. I think, yeah, no asks. It's all
Mm.
about, like, hey, I'm doing this. What How do you feel about it? Versus, I need help,
Yeah.
or I want this, right? So I think if you ask less,
Give
in a
more.
way, when you say ask, not do ask questions out of curiosity. That's different. Ask help, ask something that other people should go out of their comfort zone to do for you. That those requests, those things are should be limited, and
It's good.
you show up every day to help other people, right? So I think those are the two things that I think why the network showed up, is because A, it's very transparent, B, it's a straight ask.
So I love it. We have when facing with crisis or change or curveballs, acknowledge, accept, and act. and then how to get your network to back you and engage and support and rise up. Be authentic and give first. Don't
Yep,
ask.
that's it.
I love it. All right. So before we wrap, Sharath, tell me a little bit about, just since we're in the thick of it, we're in the moment, 6-7 weeks later. How are you processing this right now? Like, got a pros and cons list? You got a little sticky note? Like, how are you thinking about, like, you leave us cliffhanger here? What's next?
Well, yeah, I do have some. Fortunate enough to, like, some companies are talking to me, kind of like in the final stages. I'll probably, like, make a decision by, I don't know, in the next 2 weeks. I'm taking
Sure.
my sweet time with
Good for
all
you.
the move and all, like, kind of inactive, active on Twitter as well. Uh, but yeah, it's stressful. It is stressful, but not uh, in a way that is life changing. So I keep this perspective. So I'm watching this show on Netflix. It's about, I think, life on planet. I guess, if that, I don't remember the exact show, but it was actually narrated by uh, Morgan Freeman.
Okay.
Whatever the show is, like, you'll find it out.
Yeah.
It was recently released, so I really, 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 really love that show. Like, not for the technicality about our ancestors and our where we came from. That's all, of course, is amazing. The way the show was designed, at least in my opinion, that's what I'm consuming, is that, not to spoil this, but the Morgan Freeman, the narrator, actually describes, like, every biggest evolution that happened till today, like, kind of like, in that's like the narrator, the show goes on like this.
Hmm.
Like, the asteroid hit the planet, what happened, and then life found a way to come back, right? How did the life form? Then something terrible happened. How did the life found a way? How did the beings under the water, like, really, like, took shape? Something terrible happened. How did her life come back again? Dinosaurs again, extinction,
Hmm.
life, extinction, life, extinction. And I'm like, I think probably, I don't know, like, 100 years or 10,000 years, or a million years from now, we're all going to basically become non-existent. That's a fact. After watching that, uh, it's not, I'm not trying to depress anybody, but it's a fact, right? We don't have
Hmm.
dinosaurs right now
Yep.
because it evolves, right? So I'm like, you know what? That's stressful. That fact is super, super, super hopeless. This is completely hopeful. I'll find something, right?
Hmm.
Some kind of in that you know mindset about, we're all going to die. Like, my son is going to die. My about to born son is going to die. Imagine that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. It's
tough.
powerful. Yeah.
So I feel like, that's really powerful. So I go back to Carl Sagan's blue pale dot. That's one thing I keep
Hmm.
close to myself. We're in a speck of dust, compared to the cosmos
On the
that's
blue
happening
dot.
around the
Yeah.
world. Like.
I love that.
So
It's a great
you
way
just
to.
basically, like, go through it. But one thing I'm for sure, I just want to close it out on this
Yeah.
note, is that even though it's all going to happen, one thing you should do from your end as a human being is to try whatever it is. So I used to think, having bigger bank balances, having a beautiful car, like, big houses, that's the thing. I used to think that, for sure. Like, those are the things that used to drive me, like, 7-8 years ago, before
Hmm.
my first fall. And that happened. So perspective is going to change things.
Well, Sharath, thanks for coming and sharing your personal story, being authentic about it, giving first and helping others, because I know this is a thing that so many leaders, so many people go through. We all will fall down. And I always like to say, the farther down you fall, the greater you can rise. And so thanks for sharing your story and coming on the podcast. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be here.
All right. That is our conversation with Sharath. Thanks so much for coming on the show, for being so open and transparent and sharing your story about being laid off and how you've, authentically engaged your community to open up these new doors, but also the framework to help us. Because whether it be a layoff, you have to move to a new city or new state, new country, could be good things or bad things. We all get curveballs and change in our life as leaders, as just humans, right? And we need to know and be prepared for that. So I love that framework on teaching that. So remember, you can catch all the episodes, and now the Lead More podcast is on YouTube. So my one ask today is, if you are on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. Just do that for me. Go down below, click subscribe. I have this goal, I guess, in the spirit of Sharath. I haven't really spent much time ever creating strategy or a goal for YouTube. I just use it as a place to dump my videos and then embed them elsewhere. So I have a goal this year. I want to try to get to 1,000 subscribers. I have in 300s right now. It's got a little bit of that's a goal, but I think I could do it. I think I could even maybe 10x and get to 3,000. But the goal is 1,000 this year. And so I need your help. Click that subscribe button. Tell your friends if you found any of this episode valuable and share it with them. Thank you so much for listening to the Lead More podcast. Take care and be well.